What's going on, everybody? We're here with Learn from My Mistake. I'm one of your hosts, Jake Remillard. I'm joined by my partner, Marie Baginski.
Hello, hello.
You want to take it and run with it, or you want
You
me
were
to go for it?
you were going. You were on a
I'm
roll
on a
this
roll
week.
today.
I was like, just do it. Go.
I'll take it. We have on the podcast this week Lawrence Malloy. Really excited to get you in here. I've personally seen you around boardroom a bunch. Never had the privilege of speaking with you, but yeah, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, man. First of all, I just want to say thank you for having me. Really, really appreciate the opportunity to come on here and just kind of share my message, my mistakes, my fuck ups, whatever it is. I'm super passionate about teaching people what to do, but most importantly, teaching people what not to do as well to avoid, a 40, 50, $60,000 mistake. So I think what you guys are doing is great. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you here, Lawrence. Again, I have seen you kind of from afar and been tracking you, and I know you're in Florida. You're like a kind of big deal agent, right?
Nope. I am a big deal investor.
Come on. You're an agent as well, though.
I do a couple of things, but most importantly, first and foremost, I'm a real estate investor and always have been from day one. So long story short, I've been in the business for 20 years, and this is actually my 20th year in business.
Nice.
I bought and sold over 1,000 properties, and I run multiple businesses that are real estate related. I own a real estate investors association. It's the Greater Orlando Real Estate Investors Association, even though I'm based out of Tampa. I run that RIA. I also am on the board of directors for the Boardroom, which is a pretty big deal. It's one of obviously the top masterminds in the country for real estate investors. We do an amazing job with that. In addition to that, I've wrote a book on real estate investing. It's called The Art of the Acquisition. It's out on Amazon.
Nice.
I took a lot of pride into doing that. And my investment company, I own, we have our rehab company where we do a lot of remodels, fix and flips, things like that. I own some luxury Airbnb properties out at the beaches, several of those, some on the water, some not. I do quite a bit of things, do creative seller finance. We have a real estate arm. I'm not a broker, but I have my license hung with Remax and been with them for about 15 years. And they allow me to run a team and do some really cool things with that. So I have quite a bit of things that I have going on and experience in this business. So really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So with all of that going on, do you have maybe one or two that you just kind of like your heart always lies in those? I know as an entrepreneur, it's, we want to diversify a little bit, but there's always probably like that one that really just, hits you close to home. Which one would that be?
So there's a couple things. So my investing, where my transactional business, where I buy and sell real estate, that has my heart because I've been doing it for so long. And who doesn't love, be able to rehabilitate your community because I buy in my local marketplace and one house at a time, and I'm revitalizing the community. So and then we make big chunks of money and things like that. So I really love that portion of it. But then also I love my wealth building side. So there's a transactional side, and then you take that money and push it into your wealth building side. This is stuff that at some point when you sail off into the sunset, this is what's going to take care of you for the rest of your life. So taking stuff from your transactional business, putting it into your wealth building business. So there's a special infinity for that. But another thing that I really, really love is working with investors and consulting with high level investors, teaching people how to scale their business, teaching people how to go from, the hustler in their business to CEO. Basically what I do in Boardroom as I run one of our rooms and things like that, that's something that I'm very passionate about, teaching people how to scale, how to hire, what's the next move, when's the right move, is it even the right move for you to scale depending on your lifestyle. So just kind of having in-depth conversations, understanding what someone's looking to do and helping people achieve their goals. So when we say what am I passionate about, man, I'm passionate about all of it, and I've been passionate about it for a long time. So I'm excited. Exactly where I should be is where I'm at. So
love that, man.
Yeah, I mean, 20 years experience is a ton of experience. So we're in the market during the last crash.
Yep. Just before the last crash, I was in the market for about 4 years, which was crazy because I had just got started. And back then, it's not like now. So the way that you can consume information
Oh
in
yeah.
today's marketplace is a lot different than back then. So I'll tell you this. When I started back then in 2003, the internet was barely around.
Yeah.
So we didn't have, I think internet just became like popular in your home in like 1995 or 96. So it had only been like, a few years to when I got in the business. So we didn't have like GPS where you can just like car and drive to properties. We didn't have all the access to all the marketing verticals that we have. I think hard money to borrow money at the time, you borrowing at like 4 or 5 points and 15% interest. So sometimes the lenders were making more. It was just a different world back then, right? So it's been a journey to say the least. So your show tees it up perfectly for, hey, what are some of the things that I did wrong early on in order to, try to get to where I'm at today. But it was just, something you had to go through. But I'll tell you that time, and I always talk about this, you will never hear me talking about the good times. You never hear me going, oh yeah, the last couple of years, I'm so awesome. I was doing all this. I'm always talking about, hey, that time to like 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, all of those years, those were some of the most trying and toughest years that really shaped me as an investor because I had to learn how to be as diligent as possible. I had to learn how to really be disciplined with some of the stuff that I had purchased and not purchased, and how I went about doing business. So you really understand that it's through the hardships and through the tough times that you remember, not the easy stuff. Easy stuff, you don't learn anything. Through the hard stuff is when you really learn the lessons that are going to shape you.
So you had touched on something there. You said getting more disciplined with things that you had purchased and not purchased. So what did it look like 20 years ago when you're getting started? What was that transition of, hey, I wanted to get into real estate to now I'm getting into real estate? What did that look like? What were some of the early mistakes there?
Yeah. So just kind of early mistakes from getting into the business, or just how I got into the business. I used to be a bartender down in like a main party area in town. And I started bartending because I didn't know what I wanted to do. So when I was like, 20 years old, and I was like, cool, I'll just do this. And then I will meet people at my bar and ask them like what they do. Cause I worked at a place where people would come in there all day long. So
Nice.
This was in Tampa, right? You've been in Tampa the whole time?
Down in Ybor City. Yep.
Okay.
And I happened to meet this guy. He was there on like a Tuesday afternoon with his brother at like 1:00. And I used to always ask him, go, hey, what affords you to be here in order to, be able to have drinks on a Tuesday afternoon? Because most people are working a 9 to 5, or that's what I thought in my head at the time. Yeah. And I was like, how can you be here on a Tuesday drinking? He's like, I'm a real estate investor. And I kept on asking him more questions and more questions. And he was like, hey, listen, you seem like a nice guy. Like, here, take my card. If you want to take me out to lunch, then, give me a shout and we go out to lunch. I'll point you in the right direction. So essentially, that's what I did. Like a week later, I called him up. Hey, you remember me? And I wanted to see if the guy was full of shit or not. And I had to drive down to Sarasota, which is like an hour away. And at the time, I was living literally week to week on tips. Like, I didn't have anything saved, a couple $100s in the bank account. So even driving down to Sarasota seemed like this overwhelming thing.
Yeah.
Like, how am I even going to get gas to get down there? And how am I going to, is this guy going to want me to buy his lunch or not? Because I really don't have the money like that. So, but nonetheless, I did it. I went down there. He had a Lexus, and he had like a little banner on his car that said, "We buy homes." So I was like, oh, he drives a nice car. Whatever, took the guy out to lunch, and he ended up pointing me into the direction of buying a course on eBay. This guy, Ron LeGrand.
Oh, yeah.
The godfather of real estate investing, what they call him. He basically had 3 courses. One of them was like a wholesale course. The other one was creative seller finance. And then the other one was a rehab one. And the guy told me to buy the wholesale one first, and I ended up buying the wrong course. So I had to drop like $150 on this course on eBay because all the other stuff, there's no Amazon, there's none of that stuff, obviously.
Right, yeah.
So I bought the wrong course. I had to save up for 2 more weeks, and then I bought the right course. And that's how I got started. I had enough discipline at that age where I was able to carve out time, sit down, listen to CDs, because those audio CDs, and then go through a manual, which I still have over here on my bookshelf, just to kind of remind me of that journey. And back then, you couldn't just consume information on the internet like we can now, where there's all kinds of information out there. You would have to go to a seminar to hear someone speak, or go to a RIA meeting like what I own. And so I ended up going to a RIA meeting, and then the speaker came in, and then a week later I flew out and paid $5,000 to go to their seminar, weekend seminar. And I had to get on a payment plan and all that stuff. But that's kind of how I got started essentially in the business. I just randomly met someone. But what happened is, for the first 3 years, I couldn't afford to just stop bartending. So I would bartend on like Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, sometimes even on Sundays. And then I would bartend till like 5:30 in the morning. By the time we got off, counted our money, went through the whole, shebang, and wake up at like 9:30 in the morning to meet a client and work all day, sleep, take a nap for a couple hours, go bartend, do the same thing all over again, get in late, sleep for a few hours. And I did that for 3 years. And essentially my sleep became more important than, the money. And I started leaning off of bartending, which was really, really hard because it was amazing cash. I worked at a really popular nightclub and I used to make a lot of money, but essentially just, the real estate started becoming more important. In those 3 years, I was able to save up money from bartending, pay all my bills, and then save up money from the real estate investing. Just kept on saving, use the bartending to pay my bills.
So at that point, were you primarily wholesaling?
No, at that point I was rehabbing. So the first thing I did, so the first year I got into the business, I was always an investor first. So I was an investor, right? And then after the first year, I was always talking about it. So people thought I was an agent. So people were like, hey, can you show me houses? Can you help me sell my house? Like, let me just go get a real estate license. So then I was an investor first. Then I was an agent a year later, and then also bartending. So I was essentially working 3 different jobs.
Wow.
And that really, helped out because I would have a lot of conversations with people. And from bartending, I'd meet a lot of people and I'd get opportunities to, take them out to show or buy properties and make big chunks of money that I can put into the bank.
And at this time, just from piecing this together with the lifestyle, I'm guessing you were probably early 20s, single while you were doing this and able to really just dedicate your time towards grinding.
Yep. That's exactly right. I was crazy because the bar that I worked at, they encouraged drinking, they encouraged partying, they encouraged all of that. Yeah. So everyone was doing all this craziness. And if you talk to anyone from back in the day, they always knew like who I was. Like I didn't fuck around. I was like, listen, I'm going to come here. I'm going to make my money. Like I'm going to do what I need to do. I got to get home. I got to sleep. I got to, other stuff I have to do. So I was never like the big partier back then because I always just had goals and I was super focused. So kind of moving into some fuck ups though.
Yeah, let's hear them. I'm ready.
Where what the whole point of this show is the second house I ever bought. So just kind of going from the first house that I bought, I only had the manual with the CDs. So I literally went line item by line item of exactly what I should do based on what this guy, Ron LeGrand, said.
Right.
And some of his advice in that manual was not great. I'll tell you that. So he said, listen, whatever you do, you got to put in this green carpet in here. It's the best. People love that. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. So I didn't do that. But then another thing, instead of him saying, hey, you should just go get an agent to list your property. And when I tell you, I didn't know anything about real estate, nothing. I was like a kid coming off the street, just like, hey, what do? I didn't know nothing. And when I say nothing, think of the greenest freaking person you've ever talked to about real estate. Yeah. That was basically me. So I had to learn everything. So he was like, to sell the property, just get some bandit signs and put it up around the neighborhood and you'll sell it, versus hey, go get an agent and let them list the property. You sell it in 2 seconds. So I did this, and it took a lot longer to sell this property than I should. My first property, I didn't make any money. I didn't lose any money, but I basically broke even. And I was like, wow, I did so many wrong things in this project that I know I could do better next time. And I would make money. I would actually make some money. So that was a big learning lesson right there, is just make sure the information that you're consuming, I would maybe get some additional opinions sometimes. This was back in the day, and I didn't know any better. So, but now immediately I realized that I could do a lot of things differently during that rehab, even though it went pretty good. When you don't know what you're doing, you just don't know what you don't know. So I'm different contractors and people like that took advantage of me in little ways, not like anything major, but it's just some things. So the real lesson came from my second deal, though.
Okay.
Second deal, I go to the seminar. In the seminar, this guy is talking about short sales. And his message was, listen, stick to the luxury. He's like, try to find luxury houses because you can get the biggest discounts on luxury houses. And not a lot of people are playing in the luxury house market and doing short sales. This is back in the day, right when the market was about to hit. Well, I hear, hey, if you're a new person, definitely start off doing luxury homes and this and that, which is the worst thing you can ultimately do. You need to not have big dealitis, and you need to just be working in properties that, are comfortable to you and manageable versus trying to, do these big luxury properties. But the way they saw it was, when they told you this information, their whole goal was to negotiate the short sale for you, and then they were going to get a percentage of that short sale of the rip off of the deal. So that was their whole thing. Here, work in the luxury, so the spreads are bigger and they're going to make a little bit more money. Well, I didn't hear that as a new person, selective hearing. Mm-hmm. And so I hear like, okay, so I buy this list of foreclosures and I go door knocking to all these luxury houses, which being a 23, 24-year-old kid at the time, going up to people's luxury waterfront houses in like the most exclusive neighborhood and going, hey, I want to talk to you about your mortgage situation and see how I can help you.
Okay, how were you dressed, Lawrence? That's what I want to know. Were you like shirt and tie, or were you just getting off the bartending gig and just wearing like a black t-shirt going door knocking?
Let's just be clear. I've always been a good dresser, and I've always dressed to the occasion. So
okay, I'm just making sure.
Back then, I would wear slacks and a button-down shirt, and every once in a while, I would wear a tie. So I look like Jehovah's Witness, essentially, walking out there door knocking. And so I think that's probably why they let me in a couple times, is like, oh, is this Jehovah's Witness? I can't just turn them away. So, but nonetheless, this is what happened. So I buy this list. I'm going to these luxury properties. I remember I was door knocking, and I come to this house, and this house was like a pretty big house, 3,400 square feet on 4.5 acres. And I knock on it, and the guy's like, hey, I can't talk to you today, but come back tomorrow and we can talk about it. And that's how I bought my second deal, from door knocking a luxury house, and ended up buying this house. Well, the fuck up is I was too new at the business, and I had no business of buying that particular property, right? And so a couple of lessons along the way is I purchased the property. The rehab was really, really rough. It was way beyond anything that I should be doing. But nonetheless, even when it was done, I actually got an offer on the property, and it was a huge spread. It was like a couple $100,000 spread. And I got an offer, but the offer was like $80,000 lower than what I had it listed for. And in my mind, I was like, no, this house is worth X amount of dollars, and I'm not going to go that low, which I should have just cashed out and been done with it. That's the big lesson right there for everyone that is on this call. If you are buying and selling properties and you have some type of transactional business and you get an offer that you can live with, take the money and move on. The goal is to build some momentum, build some traction. There's going to be a ton of other deals down the road for you. So you don't have to squeeze every last penny out of every last deal. If you know how to find deals, there will be other deals. Take the money, move on, and build some momentum. That is probably one of the biggest pieces of advice that has served me over the past 20 years. So I've been able to really keep my business moving along. Where people get stuck is they don't sell the property, and a year, 2 years later, they're still holding on to the property. And now they get sour from the business in general, and they're out the business, they're moving on. So there's been times where I've made a little bit more on properties. There have been times I made a little less. And essentially this business is like baseball. You're going to hit some singles, you'll hit some doubles. Every once in a while you hit a home run, and every once in a while you hit that grand slam. But you won't be around if you're trying to squeeze every last penny out. So long story short is, shortly after that, the market crashed and I was still holding on to the property. And it was a big lesson of mine that I had to end up having to short sale the property. And because it was right after that where the market started taking a turn. In addition to that, all this stuff happened. So I was holding on to the property. This property was gorgeous. It was at the end of a dead end road. And high school kids used to love to go back to this end of this road. I didn't know this, and party back there. So they would go down there, and because the whole place was completely dark at the end of a dead end road, 4.5 acres, my house started getting vandalized after it was rehabbed.
Oh, no.
Well, back then I was on a shoestring budget. So when they vandalized the house, I didn't even really have they spray painted this big mahogany door that I had that was nicely stained and everything else. The window, I mean, they just basically, I had someone that had broken the house and was shaving.
Like their beard, like shaving their beard?
Yeah, like a razor, like someone like broke in the house and was using the shower, and it was just all this crazy, which is another thing. A lesson learned is you don't want to have vacant houses sitting around no matter what neighborhood they're in,
True.
It's really important that you get in and out, whether you're rehabbing or wholesaling or whatever you're doing. Wholetailing, you want to get in and out of these properties. Or if you're renting a property, you want to get a renter in there, fairly quickly.
Yeah. That's actually great advice. And, I just want to, before I move on, I want to bring up something you mentioned before and maybe didn't even realize it, but I think it's still valid today. So your first course was $150 on eBay, right? And you said some of that content might not have been the best content. And I think today the comparison is there's like YouTube University and all this free content out there that people are consuming, but they don't even know if these people are actively doing deals, right? They just see them making videos or doing things. So I think it's really important to just like talk about who we're getting our advice from, right? Like who our mentors are.
It's the wild, wild west out there. I literally interviewed this young lady to be an acquisition rep in my office. She had been in business for 2 years. She was like, "Oh yeah, I'm a coach as well. I'm a mentor and a coach." And I'm like, it was like, what have you learned in 2 years? Like, you haven't even had any experiences yet. It's like if a child came in and was playing basketball and then went to the NBA, like, "Hey, I want to start coaching the NBA," when you've just been playing pickup ball in junior high school for 2 years, and all of a sudden you want to start coaching an NBA team in the pros. Like, it just doesn't work like that. It happens all the time. People will talk about being a coach or mentor, and I'm like, you've just got in the business 3 years ago or 4 years ago, and the business has been great. Like, you haven't really had hardships to really learn and prepare people from. So it's interesting out there, to say the least. Even me, after 20 years, sometimes I am hesitant to coach people I was in the past after I've had all this experience. But it's really important. That's a really good thing that you brought up, is you have to really be careful on who you're getting your information from. And you want to make sure you're getting it from someone that has scars to show that they actually know what they're doing and has some bumps and bruises, not someone that's just like, "Oh yeah, I think I know all this stuff and has been doing this for a little bit of time." Because you're not going to get, you'll get some information, but then the goal is to get complete information, not just some information, not just a few pieces to make you dangerous to yourself.
Yeah, I think Lily over here that we can see on Jake's screen is going to go into the WNBA one day.
Oh, it's beautiful.
But she's not going to start coaching them anytime soon.
Oh, she's already coaching us.
She's got, well, you're learning a lot, right? Because now this is second child, so that's it. You
Yeah.
guys have your hands full. Um, but so Lawrence, like getting back to your journey, right? I love the fact that you also just talked about the momentum, right? Because I think that that gives you confidence as an investor. That's
Yeah.
such an important thing where, sometimes we do get emotionally attached to a number. We think our property is worth this. We put so much into it, design, construct, whatever, right? And I love the fact of just being like, okay, the point really is to get in and out as quickly as possible. Take
Yeah.
that money and move it into, what did you call it before? Your wealth side, right?
Yeah, your wealth building assets. So you take that money, you put some of it into marketing, you put some of it into operations, you put some of it into wealth building, your personal expenses, but you got to make sure that you separate that money. And most importantly, you got to make sure you put some of it to the side for Uncle Sam, because as you start making a lot of money, that tax bill comes up very quickly and you don't want to find yourself in a mess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
what are some wealth building assets that you're in right now? I'm just curious. What has been, is it single family rentals? Are you into multifamily?
yeah, so I'm into, oh man, there's so many good, I can talk about this stuff all day because I really love it, really passionate about it. But so I specialize in single family residential. That's what I've been doing for a long time. That's what I love. What happens is everyone's like, oh, the next person is doing this thing. Let me go do multifamily. Let me go do commercial. Let me go do all these other things. And I think a lot of times people get bored and they should go deeper versus wider. So you're doing this thing really good, you're making money, and then all of a sudden you're like, you know what? I'm going to go do this completely other thing. And people think it's the same, but it really isn't. It spreads you really, really thin. Hold on, that's not.
We got the other one crying.
Oh, the
Oh
other one?
no, sorry.
Crying.
Yeah, I got a couple of them. We have a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old over here.
Oh, that's amazing. 2-year-old and a 1-year-old. Oh, my boy he's so big now. I try to hold him and he's just like awkwardly and I just try to hold him so much because I know it's very limited time I'm going to get to hold him and squeeze him. He's 4, but he's 4. He's like a 5-year-old already. So he is, he's pretty awesome though.
And my boys are 8 and 10. So I got, the older side, and the 8-year-old still wants to hug me. The 10-year-old's like, Ma, let me go play video games. I'll see you later.
Yeah, my son, I'm going to be kicking his ass because he's never going to stop hugging his dad. I'm going to, at 10, 12, 15, I'm going to be holding on to him tight. So I'm telling you, Miles, if you're watching this, get ready.
Get ready.
I'm not going to let you go.
All right. Well, I don't want to keep you too much longer because I know you have a hard stop. So in the next few minutes, as we're wrapping up here, I just want to know, are there any major mistakes, major fuck ups that come to mind that you're like, if I leave this show and don't talk about this one thing, it's going to irk me later?
There's 2 things I want to talk about real quick. Actually, there's a couple things super quick that I want to talk about. So learning from that second project that I did, that big house, one of the major lessons is before you start rehabbing properties, get some proper training on it. Just because you think you fixed the house before, you're handy or whatever else, it's different when you're rehabbing a property. So make sure you get some guidance and some training first. Just because you watch a TV show or get a little training online, you need some proper training. So spend the money. You gotta learn before you earn. It's really, really important. I see a lot of people getting hurt because they're getting projects and they're getting in over their head. And once you own this project, all those fees, holding costs, insurance, mortgage payments, electric, water, all these things start adding up very, very quickly. And I've seen some people get hurt. So make sure you get proper training. Another thing on that is make sure you're reducing the price. If you can't sell a property, make sure typically what sells every property is price reduction. So even if it's not what you think you want, reduce that price, because everything sells at a price. And if you need to reduce, that's something that you need to do, because what people will do is end up holding on to it. And then loans start maturing, insurance starts maturing again. There's different things that will all of a sudden accelerate what you're paying on these projects. So keep that in mind as well. You want to leverage partnerships as well. So if you're newer in the business, you want to leverage partnerships. If you could bring in the sweat equity, someone else brings in the money. So now you're really not on the hook for, you know, the money part of it, but you can work and you can learn, or if you have someone that's experienced and you can work for free and learn from them, that's a great way. So you take a lot of your risk off of the table. And then another major thing is, if you do find yourself in a bind like this, make sure you don't just let anybody in the property or rent the property. We've seen people, opportunists, where they see people, that house has been on the market, there's an opportunist in there that gets in their property, and now it's way harder for you to get them out of there. Sometimes they can trash it. There's a lot of different things that can happen. And the reason I'm telling you this is, ask me how I know. Ask me, did I have to learn that lesson and that fuck up in order to now no one gets into my property when I'm selling it until we close, until we do a final walkthrough, until all the proper documents are signed, addendums, final walkthroughs, all that stuff. So this is information that I want to make sure that I tell regarding that second deal that I had just talked about. I do want to talk about two other things really quick.
Yeah.
One of the big things, a big fuck up, that I call it a fuck up. Some people call it, if there's something that you could, you know, do differently that you wish you would have done.
Yep.
My thing, 20 years into the business, I wish I would have held on to more properties sooner along the way. If you talk to anybody that's been in the business long enough, a lot of people will tell you that. And what we, you know, have seen is the market is cyclical. It goes in cycles, but it typically continues to go up and up and up and up and up. And, you know, if I would have
definitely been a recurring theme. We've had that a couple times, so you're not alone with that one.
So many times, yeah.
There are years where a lot of years where we're in and out of 50 to 100 properties a year, buying and selling. And, you know, if I would have just held on to 2 or 3 properties a year, which is really nothing, it's really nothing. But when you're in the shit and you're pedaling and you're making these small, tiny little spreads, especially through the hard years when the market crashed, I just couldn't see any of that. But if I would have just held on to 2 or 3, even though I live a pretty incredible life now, and it's really cool, my life would even be a lot different had I held on to, you know, had I had an extra 40 to 60 properties in my portfolio, with all of the tax savings, appreciation, and everything else, it would look different. So anybody, a big fuck up to me is that I just didn't hold on to more properties and be disciplined. It's a discipline, right? Because at the end of the day, like, you see the cash flow, $200 or $300, and you're like, it's not worth it if I could just make 30, 40 right now. But the reality is that $200 or $300 plus the tax benefits, plus the appreciation, plus the, you know, principal pay down, all of that stuff, it really adds up over time. And what you don't realize is the time goes by super fast, right? So I look up, I'm like, holy shit, I've been in this business for 20 years. I had someone call me the OG the other day. I was like, damn, I can't believe, like, I feel like I'm getting old, even though I don't feel like it. But people will say that sometimes. And it just goes by so fast. So be disciplined and holding on to a couple of assets, make a plan, and then stick to it. So that's a big thing. And then the last thing I'll tell you is, with social media, okay? About 5 years ago, about 5 years ago, I started running up my social media. I really don't care to be out here on social media. Like, it's just not necessarily has been my thing. I like to fly below the radar, just kind of do my business, whatever. But social media is a great means to build your brand. And about 5 years ago, when I wrote my book and I did all these things and I was about to ramp up my education side of my business, it was at a time where I had a lot of things going on, a lot of plate spinning. My investment firm, the real estate, my RIA group, I had, you know, a lot of things going on personally as well. So when I started up my education business, I had a lot of people reaching out to me, okay, coach me, mentor me, consult me, whatever. And what I realized is, as I picked up those clients, I didn't have the time, effort, energy to facilitate properly. So what I did is I ended up fulfilling my obligation there, and then I shut everything down. And because I was like, there's no reason for me to keep on posting or running up my social media when I'm not monetizing it. But one of my big fuck ups is I should have still been building that up for the past 4 or 5 years, because I had great traction at the time. I'd probably have, I don't know, 200, a couple 100,000 followers at this point in time, if I would have just, even if I wasn't monetizing it, but just kind of pushing the content out there consistently. But instead I shut it down, and I just started ramping it back up a couple months ago. actually like 2 months ago, and hence
Nice.
why I'm on this show, and I'm on a bunch of different podcasts and speaking engagements, things like that. But there is a lot of regret that I didn't just kind of keep it going, because as you are ready to monetize and people are in different phases of their business and different phases of their lives, that when you do have the time, you'll have an organic following if you're consistent with it, and you can really monetize it a lot quicker and a lot easier. And there's a lot of different ways that you can monetize that, whether it's consulting or whether it's raising private capital or whether it is, coaching, mentoring, things like that. So there's just kind of some things where we think of fuck ups. I look at, fuck ups one way, maybe some people look at it another way, just like a mistake. And this is more of like bigger picture type stuff that, if I have some advice for people, I'm like, hey, do these two things. And as uncomfortable as it feels sometimes, the reality is everything feels uncomfortable when you're first starting or trying it out. And then it gets easier and easier and easier over time. Some people will never get comfortable with being on a camera or social media or anything like that. But for the people that just feel weird about it at first, it gets a lot easier as you go forward. So hopefully that was some good insight to how we can, help some people out here.
Absolutely. I love that message. And I think like one thing I just want to say, there's a theme there, right? Every piece of advice that you had was like consistency and discipline. So the consistency of being in this business for 20 years and making that small change, having the discipline, right, of just buying 1 or 2 properties or holding on to those extra properties, even with social media now, like, right, just that consistency and the discipline to keep doing it, even if you're not monetizing it.
It's doing the hard stuff. It's doing the hard stuff that most people don't want to do. That's going to be the biggest separator between you and the next person at the end of the day. Like doing the things like being a landlord, like it sucks. Like everyone says it's passive. It's not passive. Like as long as you can kind of like get through the nonsense, the time of it all, then you will do extremely well. But it's that discipline of doing stuff that you may not want to do, that's uncomfortable. Like an athlete, like the athletes that are going into the gym and doing the hard stuff, doing the workouts when no one else is doing it, they're going to be the ones that separate themselves. Same thing with business. It's very, very similar. So yeah, you nailed it.
Yeah. All right, Jake, any last thoughts? Because I know you're like, the kids are crazy, so I'm good. All right, perfect. He's like, I'm not even going to unmute. All right, so Lawrence, just wrapping up here, kind of tell everybody, if they want to get in touch with you, if they want even mentorship by you or to work with you or buy properties with you or whatever it is, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Absolutely. The very best way to get in touch with me is right on Instagram. My Instagram is THE. My first name, LAWRENCE, and then my last name, Malloy, MALLOY. So the Lawrence Malloy on Instagram. People direct message me all the time, and we message right back. It's literally like you have my phone number, and you can message me, and then we can chit chat or whatever. So once again, I really appreciate the opportunity today to chat and give my message out to your tribe. And I look forward to seeing you guys in Boardroom sometime soon where we can connect.
Yeah, we'll see you in December. Definitely. You planning on being in San Diego?
Absolutely. I don't think I've missed a Boardroom in maybe 25, 26 events. Like it's a pretty big deal that I've gone to a lot of things. Matter of fact, I'm flying over to meet Kent to do some CEO coaching. We have a CEO client that's flying into Dallas. So I fly out tomorrow morning and we'll go work with some clients that are doing CEO coaching. And then I'll fly back on Thursday to go to my RIA meeting. So doing a lot of moving and shaking.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being our guest. Remind me to tell you that my start was also bartending. So we have something in common, but I didn't want to waste time talking about my story. So we'll talk about that at the next Boardroom. But thank you so much for being here. And I think we're going to have to invite you back sometime because I know that there's more lessons and more mistakes that you want to share with our audience.
So many more. There are literally so many more. I was like, let me try to lock it down to like main things that we can kind of talk around. But I mean, 20 years, you have to understand, like it's the school of hard knocks out here. Yeah.
Well, Well, awesome. Again, thank you. Thank you. And we'll talk to you soon.
All right, sounds good.